5 gun laws just changed in ways that could affect what you can build, what you can carry, what you can buy, and, in some cases, whether you can legally touch a gun at all. And the wild part is, most gun owners never even heard about these changes until after the rulings were already out. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I'm about to show you is exactly the kind of update people miss right before they make a very expensive mistake. Hit that button now, because one bad assumption about gun law can turn a normal day into handcuffs, court dates, and thousands in legal bills. Today, I'm breaking down 5 court moves that quietly changed the rules. Some expanded gun rights, some kept restrictions alive, and some only changed things in certain states, which is where people get confused. So don't zone out, because change number 4 is the one most people online are getting completely wrong. First thing, the Supreme Court made it very clear that if a court finds someone is a real threat in a domestic violence case, that person can still be temporarily blocked from having guns. This came from a case called United States v. Rahimi. Now, here's what people get wrong. A lot of folks heard about that case and assumed the court was deciding whether the government can disarm people just because somebody made an accusation. That is not what the court said. What the court actually said was much narrower. If there is a restraining order and a court has found that the person poses a credible threat to someone's physical safety, the government can temporarily disarm that person without violating the Second Amendment. In plain English, this means the federal ban tied to certain domestic violence protective orders is still alive. Well, why does that matter to you? Because this is where social media gets dangerous. Imagine a guy hears, the Supreme Court is pro-gun now, so all these restrictions are dead. He has a protective order against him. He still has a pistol in the truck. He gets pulled over. He tells himself the law is probably unconstitutional anyway. That thinking can get him charged before he ever gets a chance to argue about the Constitution in court. And here's the part nobody talks about. This ruling also tells us something bigger. The court is not saying every gun restriction dies automatically. If the government can point to a long tradition of disarming people who are dangerous, the court may allow that restriction to stand. So if you've been telling yourself, Bruin killed everything, slow down. It didn't. Second, ghost gun rules got a lot more serious. In Bondi v. Vanderstock, the Supreme Court upheld the federal rule allowing the government to regulate at least some ghost gun kits in unfinished frames or receivers. That sounds technical, so let me make it simple. If a kit or unfinished part can be turned into a working gun pretty quickly, the government may treat it more like a firearm than just a random box of parts. This matters because a lot of people still think if it ships in pieces, it's not a gun. That used to be the argument. But after this ruling, some kits that can be readily completed now fall under rules that involve serial numbers, background checks, dealer records, and licensing requirements. In other words, the old idea that parts are just parts is a lot weaker than it was. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. Let's say you order a build kit online because you think you're buying something outside of normal gun rules. It shows up with almost everything needed, and it can be finished fast with common tools. Before this ruling, some sellers acted like that product lived in a gray zone. After this ruling, that gray zone is a lot smaller. If the product is close enough to a working firearm, federal rules may follow it. But here's the crazy part. The average buyer usually does not read the product description carefully, and he definitely does not read federal court opinions. He sees one YouTube comment saying, "Still legal, bro," and thinks that settles it. It doesn't. If you deal with kits, unfinished frames, or build-at-home setups, you need to understand that this area tightened up in a big way. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the 5 words that protect you when cops ask about your gun. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because legal updates are useful, but knowing what to say in the moment can matter even more. Third, young adults got a quiet win in Minnesota, and almost nobody noticed. The Supreme Court declined to step into a case that challenged Minnesota's rule limiting public carry permits to people 21 and older. Because the court passed on the case, the lower court ruling stayed in place, and Minnesota could no longer keep 18 to 20-year-olds from applying for carry permits. Now stop right there, because this is where people mess it up. This was not a nationwide ruling that suddenly gave every 19-year-old in America a carry right in every state. It changed things in Minnesota, and it matters as a signal to other courts, but it is not a coast-to-coast permission slip. Still, this is a big deal. Why? Because age-based gun laws are one of the hottest fights in the country right now. Some courts are saying adults between 18 and 20 are part of the people protected by the Second Amendment. Other courts are upholding age limits. That means the map is getting uneven fast. Imagine you're 20 years old. You can vote, you can join the military, you may even live on your own and work full-time. In one state, a court may say you can apply for a carry permit. In another state, the same conduct could still be blocked. Most people think gun rights work like a light switch, on or off. But the truth is, they often work more like a patchwork quilt. Your rights may look one way in one state and completely different down the road. And here's what most people get wrong. They assume if the Supreme Court refuses to hear a case, nothing happened. Wrong. Sometimes that refusal quietly leaves a lower court ruling standing, and that lower court ruling changes real life the next morning. In this case, young adults in Minnesota got a practical change, even though there was no giant Supreme Court press conference. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Fourth, and this one is huge, a federal appeals court said the federal government cannot block licensed gun dealers from selling handguns to law-abiding adults ages 18 to 20, at least in the case before it. The case is Reese vs. ATF. This is the one people online are butchering. Here's the clean version. The Fifth Circuit said the old federal ban on handgun sales by licensed dealers to adults under 21 violated the Second Amendment. That sounds simple, but the effect is not simple. Why? Because court orders, enforcement details, and geography matter. A ruling like this can be powerful without instantly changing every gun counter in America overnight. So let me break this down for you. If you heard somebody say the under 21 handgun ban is dead everywhere, that is too broad. If you heard somebody say nothing changed at all, that is also wrong. The real answer is messier. The ruling matters a lot. It weakens that restriction. It gives challengers in other cases more ammo, but you still have to care about where you live, what dealer you're dealing with, and state laws. Picture a 19-year-old walking into a gun store after hearing a viral clip. He expects to walk out with a handgun that day. The dealer says no. The buyer gets angry and says, "The court already ruled." Maybe. But maybe that dealer is following different guidance, or state law blocks it, or the legal relief in that case is narrower than the internet made it sound. This is why half knowledge is so dangerous. The big takeaway is this. Courts are moving towards stronger protection for some young adult gun rights. But that movement is uneven. Carry rights and purchase rights are not the same. Dealer sales and private transfers are not the same thing. Federal law and state law are not the same thing. If you don't separate those categories, you're going to misunderstand the law. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be that group. Join the gun owners who come here to get the full story, not clickbait. Click subscribe, because the next legal change will hit long before news explains it. Fifth, courts also reminded everyone that a carry permit isn't a pass everywhere. In a Ninth Circuit ruling, California and Hawaii kept enforcing bans on carrying guns in a bunch of so-called sensitive places. We're talking about bars, restaurants that serve alcohol, and parks. In some cases, places like beaches, casinos, libraries, zoos, and museums. This shocked people because they thought states could only ban carry in schools, but the courts said the list can be broader than that. Not unlimited, but broader. And that means your permit may be valid while still becoming useless in certain spots. Imagine you're driving across town, you stop for lunch at a place serving alcohol, then you swing by a park, then you head to a game at a stadium, same gun, same holster, same day. But the legal answer changes every time. That is exactly how people get trapped. Not because they meant to break the law, but because they assumed a permit worked like a magic shield. Now, the same ruling did not bless every location restriction. Some bans were blocked. This is not a simple states can ban guns anywhere decision. Courts are willing to approve wider sensitive places than expected, but draw lines. And here's a bonus warning. People thought assault weapon bans would vanish next. That did not happen. The Supreme Court declined to take up recent challenges. Maryland's semi-automatic rifle ban and Rhode Island's magazine ban stayed in place. So if you live in a banned state, do not assume the law disappeared yet. This is the part that shocked me most. The biggest danger is not lawmakers. Sometimes it's outdated advice. It's a gun forum post from 8 months ago. It's a buddy at the range saying, "I'm pretty sure that changed." Pretty sure is how good people end up with bad charges. Laws move fast. Subscribe now so you're not relying on rumors or old screenshots. The next video will break down what to do before you travel with a firearm. So here's the bottom line. 5 rules quietly shifted. Domestic violence orders stand. Ghost gun kits are regulated. Young adults gained ground on carry and purchases. And permit holders still face major location-based limits in certain states. The lesson is simple. Never assume one headline gives a nationwide answer. If this helped, subscribe right now. I do the research so you don't gamble freedom. Before you act, talk to a qualified attorney to ensure the law applies to you.